I'll welcome you to the show, and we'll just get stuck into it. And I'm sure you'll roll with the punches.
Yeah, that's my middle name.
Good, good, good. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Business Owner Elevation Podcast. It's Leon Streete in the house, and I have an amazing guest waiting in the wings. And you can probably see already if you're watching this on video. If you're listening to the audio, I want to welcome Eleanor Beaton to the show. How are you doing, Eleanor?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Awesome, awesome. So guys, I think you're going to find her story fascinating. I think where we're going to dig in some of the things that she's doing, really, I would say kind of like it's going to take the lid off a few things and take you into leadership. And that's, really what she's known as. So let me give you her bio just so you know a bit more about Eleanor. So Eleanor Beaton is a women's leadership mentor and founder of Fierce Feminine Leadership, an organization that helps ambitious professional women and business owners develop the confidence, presence, political savvy, and influence they need to succeed. Eleanor is also an award-winning journalist, podcast host, a keynote speaker, and she has served as the chair of the Visiting Women's Executive Exchange Program at the Yale School of Management. Sounds very hoity-toity. I'm sure we'll get into that. In 2017, she won the prestigious Profiles in Diversity Women Worth Watching Award for her work promoting diversity and inclusion. She's also been named Canada's Leadership Coach of the Year by the 2017 Corporate Excellence Awards. That's pretty cool as well, Eleanor. And on her podcast, Fierce Feminine Leadership, Eleanor shares inspiring interviews with powerful women in business, along with practical tools and tricks you can use today to step into your power, smash the glass ceiling, and take your seat at the tables where the big deals and decisions are made. I love that. Welcome to the show, Eleanor.
It's the only seat,
deals,
the only table to sit at.
I'm ready to go. I'm sat at my desk. It's like, let's get these big deals going. Cool. So thanks for coming on the show. And just as a side note, guys, I actually know Eleanor. We met about 2 years ago. And for me, like I said in the intro, you're going to find out some great things. I think she's a really inspiring lady. She's done some great things and she's doing some great things right now. And I know, especially with women, she's taking, I suppose, with leadership for these people to the next level. And I see the pictures that you post on social media, and it's really cool. And what I like most is that when people talk about what they're doing, but they also show what they're doing. And for me, that's really cool. So let's get into it. Eleanor, what is your elevated success quote? What is your key mantra or principle that you kind of repeat or every now and again remind yourself that's the thing that you replay in your mind that takes you towards success?
Make sure that my desires are greater than my fears.
Ooh, okay, so tell us more for everybody listening. What does that mean?
Well, I think that, anytime you're trying to get to this next level of success, and we all get to decide what that looks like for us and what that stretch goal is. And one of the things that I've seen is that, the more that I grow, and the more that I do, and the more risks that I take, and the more that I push myself out of my comfort zone, what I find for myself to be the limiting factor really is my desire level versus my fear level.
Yeah.
So, easy goals are the ones where I don't really have much fear around it and I can just get out there and do it. But my toughest goals and my biggest breakthroughs have always come from me kind of walking on a path through the fire, and the fire is really doing battle, like rolling up my sleeves, busting out my weapons and doing battle,
Guys, I'm sure you're really going to get to grips with who Eleanor is, all this warrior talk. She's an Amazonian, really, guys.
So true. So for me, I know that if something's not working right, or if I'm going after a goal and I'm working hard and I'm not getting the results that I want, I know that I need to take a step back and look, okay, is my desire greater than my fear? And if it's not, how are you going to go? What are you going to do, Eleanor, to address that?
I like that. I like that. This we have Wonder Woman on the show, I believe.
She's my spirit animal.
Awesome. I like this. So So with that in mind, I can really relate to what you're saying there in terms of the desires greater than the fears. And I think for a lot of people, the kind of, especially the people who I coach and help as well with marketing, the business owners, is that we all have this desire, but you have picked up on the key thing. It's like, how much more stronger is it than the fears, the inertia, and the kind of, you know, the limiting beliefs? And like you said in your bio, the glass ceilings that we hold ourselves in. And I think it's important that we do regularly get to that point of smashing through and getting on to the next milestone. But what I would like to do is go really back in time, and for you to tell us a bit more about your story. What led you up until the point where you are right now, Eleanor? I'd like you to kind of just give our listeners, Elevation Nation, a kind of 5-minute breakdown of where you come from, what started it, because I do believe you've got some roots over here in the UK as well. But it'd be really cool if you could just share that with our audience.
Yeah, so I was actually born in the UK. I'm half Welsh. I was born in the UK, born in Cardiff, and lived there with my parents. So my father was Welsh. My mother is from the Fiji Islands. Cool. And when I was a little kid, we moved to Canada. Mm-hmm. And you know, I can remember growing up in Eastern Canada, feeling quite different, and you know, I lived in a sort of small rural community where they had never seen a Black person before, not really, or there were very few around. I felt completely, you know, different and unique, you know, as a young kid. And so I guess, you know, for me growing up, it was really seeing that difference, seeing that I was unique and I was also different, and that could be a good thing. You know, that was both challenging, but it was also something that, you know, that gave me an advantage. You know, it was a differentiator, I guess, in some ways. Yeah. So I always kind of had that. And that actually, incidentally, has really helped me, you know, as an entrepreneur, really being able to embrace the things that make me different and lead with them. You know, so I, you know, grew up, went to school, started my career as a journalist, ended up launching a boutique communications consulting business, did a lot of advising, you know, CEOs and politicians on their speeches and on their key messages and on crisis communications, communication strategy. Then, so my clients started asking me, you know, to come into their organizations and do communications training with people. Yeah. Now, this is internal communications, and I was really focused on external communications. And I can remember saying, no, that's not what I do. You know, and they were pretty relentless. And so I developed a program called Courageous Communications. Took like hundreds of people went through this program. Then they started saying, look, can you come in and do communications development work with our leadership teams? Again, I said, that's not what I do. And they, you know, they said, look, would you give it a shot? So I did. And that's where I started to notice that around some of those teams, you know, around some of those tables where you had, you know, key senior leaders together and, you know, senior managers and all of that good stuff, I started noticing differences in how women were showing up one-on-one versus around those tables. So that's where the need really, you know, revealed itself. And ironically, you know, so much of what I focus on when it comes to leadership is really ensuring that your authentic voice comes through, because, you know, I think it's not just enough to have a seat at the table. You also have to have a voice. And, you know, what was interesting that I noticed was that, you know, I'd spent so much of my career as a teacher, even as an advisor, very much behind the scenes, not sharing my own message. And so, and then there was a moment, you know, when I realized, okay, for me to really have the impact that I'm here to have, it's not just about being behind the scenes anymore. It's about me stepping out front and sharing my message and doing what I advise people to do and bringing my own skills to bear to do that. So that's a little bit about the background. And, you know, I ultimately moved into sort of a business that focused full time on leadership development for women just over 3 years ago. So there was a sort of a transition period, and then, you know, full force about 3 years ago. And it's been full steam ahead and a really fun journey, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. So where's this award come from? Let's get straight to it, Eleanor.
The award,
Yeah.
you know, the award comes from
Hold on.
being.
What's the award again? Give us
So
the
the
title.
award is Canada's Leadership Coach of the Year
There you
from the
go.
2017 Corporate Excellence Awards.
Which is pretty
So
cool.
it is cool, you know, it's totally cool. And I'll tell you how it came about. And in fact, how most good things in my business have come about.
Mm-hmm.
It's been from me being okay with being visible and being out there to share my story.
Yeah.
And specifically doing it on different social platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I can remember, Leon, we were in Las Vegas, and I can remember you saying, so Leon was doing some marketing, you know, training and training in terms of lead generation for myself and a group of other consultants and coaches who were together at the time. And I can remember you saying, Leon, you know, obscurity is your greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. That's what came out of your lips. And it really got me. Because at the time, I still was really struggling with obscurity to a degree. I mean, unless you're Tony Robbins, I suppose we all kind of are.
I agree.
Right? And so, and then I realized that it was time for me to start not just doing the things that I was doing, but talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, talking about what we were doing, sharing my story, sharing my message, adding value, teaching until I was blue in the face, you know, on social platforms. And I'd kind of grown up with the belief that talking about yourself and what you're doing in that way is ill-bred. It's not a good thing to do.
Yeah, I came across something like that too.
Yeah, you know, and it's anyway. And so the more that I was willing to open up, you know, to share what I was doing online, to add to the conversation about women's leadership, the more that people started paying attention, and great things came my way. Great partnership opportunities, awards and recognition, clients, and through all that, of course, is that ability to make a difference.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's pretty cool. And thank you for sharing that about, you know, the talk and the training that I did in Las Vegas with you guys. And I think even back then, you know, just speaking with you on obviously many different occasions during that time that we were all together, it really was apparent the kind of woman that you are. And after that event, seeing you on stage at Event of Champions, again, for me, what I really like about the people that I connect with is kind of like seeing them in, you know, in action. And that's what it was for me. It was just kind of like awesome. And I remember you talking, I thought that was really cool, really powerful. You know, you've come over from Canada and you're just putting it down, laying the down in the UK.
That's right.
Yeah. And so as I'm watching, I'm kind of, because I naturally do it. I'm always observing and just seeing, you know, different things. And I even have this quote that I always repeat to people, and it's from Carlito's Way, Al Pacino: "When you can't see the angles no more, you're in trouble, baby." And so what I always do, I always analyze things, and I'm just taking, and I just remember your talk actually, now that, you know, we're going back a bit into your story, and just thinking everybody was responding so well to what you were saying. So, you know, it's really cool. And congratulations on the award, by the way. And I can say it on this show, so that's cool. Yeah, it's recorded in history.
That's right. That's right. This special moment in
Absolutely. So thanks for sharing that with us right now. So obviously you're recognized as a coach, and you're doing a lot of things on, I've seen the retreats, the pictures that you post online, and, you know, you're really killing it with the podcast, and congratulations on that as well. Because I'm sure at the time you were about to launch the podcast when we were speaking, and you hadn't launched it yet, but, you know, you've gone full in. So congratulations. But what I'd like to know now really is kind of, I want to move into more of what you're teaching people, what you're helping people with, and how you're mentoring, coaching, that side of things, and the programs that you deliver. But I want to know from what you do now, what has been your biggest failure to date, and what were the biggest lessons that you learned on this journey with what you do now?
That's such a great question. And because I micro fail every single day. And I also don't spend tons and tons of time looking in the rearview mirror, you know? So the failure question, it's such a classic, it's a classic question, and so useful to kind of think through. So I would say, And it has, I mean, there have been so many times that I have made mistakes,
Hmm.
not done things as well as I should have, not debriefed as effectively as I could have. So I would say that when I think about building up my business,
Hmm.
and my biggest mistake, I think it would be, give me a moment here because that's a really good question. There's so many to choose
It's cool.
from.
We haven't got a
Yeah.
clock ticking or anything like
Yeah,
that.
I
There's
know.
no countdown timer.
I think the biggest mistake that I have made has been, I think it's been one of I guess in the beginning, okay,
Hmm.
so in the beginning of building my business, it was not understanding just how important it was to focus on sales and marketing.
Awesome.
So, right. I mean, and I really think that like, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I didn't get into this business because I'm a natural entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I got into this business because I'm actually a natural speaker,
Yeah.
creator, teacher. You know,
Hmm.
that's where I really see myself. And so I had to learn how to become a CEO.
Hmm.
And I think that in the early days, I sacrificed growth and momentum because I was too much focused on the process of what I did, of delivering the
Yeah.
results, and wasn't quite focused enough on the sales and marketing. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that I think, you know, the other sort of biggest failure was in some ways being too personally invested in my work.
Mm.
So here's what I mean, you know, in order to, like, I think about the great leaders of the world,
Yeah.
whether it's Gandhi, whether you're thinking about a Barack Obama, whether, you know, any great leader. And in order for those men and women to accomplish the results, to have the impact, they have to both care deeply about what they do,
Hmm.
but they also, I think, at the same time need to have a certain degree of self-containment.
Yeah.
And I say this specifically for coaches because I think as a coach, in order for you to be excellent, in order for you to grow, in order for you to have a big impact, you need to care deeply about what you do, but you also, I think a big challenge, especially for coaches and consultants, is sometimes we feel like we need to carry all of our clients over
Hmm.
the finish line.
Yeah.
And I think that I have made that mistake in the past, getting into that space of feeling like I need to get the results for them. I
Yeah.
need to carry them over the finish line. And you can't do that. I mean, nobody's carrying us over the finish
Yeah.
line.
Correct.
You know, we've carried ourselves. I've worked with tons of great mentors and
Hmm.
coaches, and always I've had to get myself there. And so I
Yeah.
think as a coach, especially because I know this is your audience,
Hmm.
when you're thinking about growing and building your business, you need to be strong and you need to be independent as
Yeah.
well, truly independent.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing it. And I think there are actually two big areas, and you've hit the nail on the head in terms of sales and marketing, because I was telling you just, you know, in the green room before we started the show, that I've literally just finished my book and sent it to my editor, so that process can now take shape. And one of the big things that I've put is that until you hit 7 figures, you're only focusing your business. And, you know, this may be controversial to some people, but I say it's sales and marketing.
Hmm.
It's, you know, because if you've got sales, you've got customers, you can give yourself the headspace once money's coming in. And I think it's a real big thing that obviously you've identified. And I know it took a bit of time for you to go through those. What's the biggest failure?
Yeah, I
But
know. I
actually,
was really,
but
I was like,
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, it's the most important thing that I believe a lot of people fail on. And it, you know, just like you say as well, and then moving into the second part about caring deeply enough, but, you know, being self-contained. And I think it comes to that point of also empathy as well, that you can see the way somebody's working or doing something, but you don't necessarily agree with it. And I believe these are huge lessons for our listeners right now. And it's great that you've picked up on this. I think they're really great lessons. It's almost like the point when I'm speaking to one of my clients and I'm talking to them and saying, at what point are you marketing compared to where you actually start delivering the how to and become their coach? Yeah.
mhm.
And a lot of people get that kind of mixed up. And yes, there is a specific way to do that. But I think when you first start out, you kind of do anything to, you know, to get customers, to get something, happy momentum, whatever it is. So thanks for sharing that. So Eleanor, let's flip the script. What is, and it might be what we've covered already, but you know, your award, I don't know, but what is your biggest success to date?
I think I think the biggest success, you know, and there's a couple of different ways to look
Mm-hmm.
at it. So from
Mm-hmm.
business perspective, you know, we have built one of the fastest growing coaching companies in the country.
Yeah.
We have built an organization that is past seven figures, which is
Mm-hmm.
really exciting.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud of those things. I'm really proud of the fact that when I look at, I really look at my clients and the distance that they've traveled and the path and the journey that they've traveled and
Mm-hmm.
how they are using the systems that I'm teaching them.
Yeah.
Whether, and what's unique about my company is that I work with women who are in corporate and I work with women entrepreneurs. We are
Mm-hmm.
focused on that ambitious warrior queen. Okay. It's a
Awesome.
psychographic. So we work with them both, to help them, drive in the corporate world and to create the change that they want there, but also inside the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So I would say that when I look at those women and when I look at the community of clientele that we've served and what they have achieved, and the beauty is that over a few years you can see, the journey that they have taken from things that they just talked about as potential ideas
Mm-hmm.
to, a few years later on social media, it is a reality. Like their life is completely different. What they have achieved is completely different. And and the biggest success there you learn so much about the human condition. Like I have learned so much about the human condition from coaching and working with hundreds of people. I mean, a few things, like things never happen as quickly as people want.
Yeah.
And what I find is that you really have to be a detective of your own success,
Mm-hmm.
because they start out with goals. They typically are harder than than you thought it would be to reach. It's going to take longer. And by the time you reach it, you're so focused on the next goal that you don't take time to say, actually, I crushed it here.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that, you know what I mean? I think that it's
Mm-hmm.
the mix of building the business and seeing the results of the clients. But I think, from a personal perspective, I take a huge amount of personal satisfaction from the fact that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
anybody who's building a big business, like there
Mm-hmm.
are days where you are really taking a lot of crap, and that's
Absolutely.
what it is, right? Like you're dealing with a lot of things. You're taking risks. Things don't work out. People are disappointed about this. You can't make everyone happy.
Mm-hmm.
And as a lifelong people pleaser, for me to get into a situation where I've been able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of again bring out the swords and do battle with my own demons and limitations.
Yeah. Yeah.
That feels so good. That ability to be like, you know what, I'm resilient. I wanted something. I went out after it. I did it. I'm still on the path, but it feels independent, and that to me is
Good.
success. Yeah.
Good. Thank you for sharing that, Eleanor. I think these are all great points that you've raised here, and as well as the explanations of why they're your successes. And I think, like you, seeing the successes of your clients is one of the biggest things, and obviously your own successes as well. But seeing your clients is a different thing, because it's like you say, you do become a detective on your own success, and you start to look at actually what worked, and how can I give that to my clients and help them through to whatever level they're trying to achieve next. And that's really cool. What I'd like to do is switch it up a bit now. Similar to you, although I don't target just women, I have about 70 to 80% demographic who are women, surprisingly enough. So if we were speaking to the listeners right now, what 3 things would you tell them to focus on when it comes to leadership? What whether they're tips or key steps they need to take based on your experiences?
The first piece of advice that I would
Mm-hmm.
give is to really understand that your core skill set is going to be communication.
Mm-hmm.
And that ability to communicate persuasively,
Yeah.
to, whether you're trying to lead your own company or you're inside an organization leading that. But, what do leaders do? We paint a picture of a better future. Like we create that vision,
Mm.
and then we get people to move together toward that vision. And
Yeah.
that requires the ability to communicate effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it is very difficult to lead unless you can effectively communicate. So really, really work on your communication skills, your persuasiveness skills,
Mm-hmm.
your ability to move a room. That is a core skill that you need to work on. And quite frankly, I have had people who say, well, I'm an introvert, so I could never do that. And I'm going to be honest with you that some of my most effective communicators, some of my clients who are the very best speakers, are introverts. So this has nothing to do with introversion.
So is it a myth?
I think it's a myth.
Because
I think
it seems to be a buzzword at the moment, Eleanor.
I know, it's a total myth. And the thing is, it just means that they're more tired. Like if I go out and talk, I am jacked. My energy is like this high for a week. And my clients who are more introverted, like it's actually quite draining for them to do that. But it doesn't mean, the fact that it's draining doesn't mean that they're not just as good. So I think that first one, really focus on communication and persuasiveness as a fundamental skill set. That's number one. Number two, I think, is to really do that inner work. This is a lesson I learn and relearn daily, but to do that inner work so that your desires are greater than your fears.
Awesome.
And anytime you notice yourself holding back, procrastinating on something, that things are not working out the way that you want to, really go back to what am I afraid of, and do the work, around those fears. I think that's the second thing. And then the third thing, to really, really lead effectively is to stay in action.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's embracing the mantra that done is better than perfect, whether it's embracing the mantra that you can't course correct, a vehicle if it's standing still. I remember a mentor of mine saying that, but it's so, so important to stay in action. Every day, do something to move that business forward.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. Those are real great bits of advice that people can take on board. These are the very things that I also use, guys. And so I'm so excited and happy that Eleanor's sharing all of this. These are the secrets to success, guys.
It's true.
It's laid before you.
You heard it right here.
That's it. So, all right then. So let's move on from there. And thank you for sharing those. What's the current big thing our community should be aware of right now?
You mean in terms of in growing their businesses, or just a trend in the industry?
It could be whatever you think is the key thing. So it could be either or.
Yeah, I would say that this industry is, I think one of the biggest challenges inside the coaching industry is that it is filled with creative people who don't always apply that same level of creation and innovation to marketing and business growth. So one of the things that I found about our industry, the coaching and consulting industry, is that we tend to be a little bit sheep-like in how we go about marketing. So you see one really successful coach doing something, and now everybody is doing that. And I say, turn that coaching skill set on yourself, turn that creativity on yourself, and challenge yourself. What would be the opposite of what everybody else is doing? What is something totally outside of the box? How can I be truly innovative and different? Now, there is absolutely such a thing as processes and steps. And I think you need to learn those things. There's definitely proven systems, but just make sure that you're giving yourself like 10 or 15% of your, of how you approach marketing and business growth to be truly innovative. And it's a challenge, but I think that inside our industry, it's something we all need to really watch for.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Again, when it comes to marketing, I'm the same. When everybody's zigging, you've got to zag. And like, if everybody goes left, you really have to go right. And it's kind of like, I tweaked this little thing here, so I'm a bit different. It's like, no, go the full hog and go do it.
Totally.
So I think that's a really great piece of advice. And it, when it comes to your front end message, or when it comes to, just how you portray your culture as well. And I think, that's something that people really, I think they vibe off it as well, especially when they warm to you in your message. And that's one of the things that people will look for, because they are looking for something new, something different, whether people admit it or not. It's kind of like, I think when there's a new product that comes out, and that product you've actually bought before, but it's the new fairy washing up liquid, you know, it's and that's what people are looking for, but really be different. So thanks for sharing that piece of advice, Eleanor. So then, moving on, and we're coming near towards wrapping up in a moment. But before we do, what great book or audio resource have you read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Ooh, okay. I love the first one that comes to mind is a book called Turning Pro.
Ooh, okay.
Turning Pro by
I know
Stephen
this one.
Pressfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, honestly, I've got to say, anytime I need just a kick in the pants, you know, because sometimes I need that. We all do. I
Yeah.
just go and read an essay from Turning Pro, you know, and it's about, and to me, you know, it really comes down to being monkish, like a monk. You know, it's about being devoted, working diligently. You know, I think when I think about the people that I'm working with, one of the biggest challenges is impatience. You know, I think in business, you've definitely got to bring a sense of urgency, but impatience can absolutely kill your success. So bring a sense of urgency, do it now. You know, as women, especially, I think we really sometimes kind of sit back and we want to make sure everything's perfect and plan it out up here. No, you've got to bring that sense of urgency to the task, but do not allow impatience to kind of kill your results. And I think that's why, you know, reading books like Turning Pro, that really, it's like, look, you know, so you've done things 2 times and you're upset because they haven't worked. Do it 200 times and then build up that body of evidence, and then let's see, you know. So I think that's one of my favorite books and best resources.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So getting closer, but not quite. When you were younger, I want to throw this one as a little curveball. If you were dealt a different hand of cards, what do you think you'd be doing today?
Well, there was a good 5-year period of my life where I wanted to be a supermodel / investment banker, because I grew, my hero, my aunt was an investment banker in the city of London, actually, very successful. And I grew up in the age of like Linda Evangelista and Naomi Campbell, like the real supermodels.
Yes,
I
the real
them,
ones.
right? The real ones. And I was just obsessed with them. And that's what I wanted to be. So there was that, you know, but my dream job, I would say my dream job, truly, that I've often said, if I didn't do something like this, I might do this. It would be to be the obituary writer for The Economist. So The Economist magazine has the absolute best obituaries, most touching, beautiful, you know, homages to people's lives. And when I was a kid, I actually used to really love walking around graveyards and looking at the stones and thinking about their lives. I know, it's so funny. It's so funny when I think about it now, but there's just something about all these lives lived, you know, and thinking about their stories and experiences. And I mean, that's what coaching is. It's trying to, it's really honoring the life that's lived, you know? So I think, you know, if I'd been dealt a different hand of cards, either it's a toss up between supermodel / investment banker or obituary writer for The Economist.
I'm so glad I asked you this question.
Tell me that I won.
Yeah, you did. I think you're the most prepared for that question that I've ever asked over like 200 interviews or whatever.
Look, I've got to, like, winning, #winning.
Absolutely. So, all right then, what's the one thing in business or how you work that you can't live without then?
Ooh, I cannot live without my, it's right here. It's right beside me. It's called the Productivity Planner. It's a day planner, essentially. But I've used this religiously for the last year and a half. And I really, really enjoy it because it helps me to keep very focused on outcomes. And I will say, I know you've got a lot of women listening to this. Sometimes we can be very task oriented. In our approach versus outcome oriented. And so I really put a few things in place to make sure that I'm being outcome oriented. And that's made a huge difference in my business. Awesome.
That's great advice. I've actually got one of those as well. And my partner uses one as well. She has it like, I need to plan tomorrow and the week. So yeah, I agree with that. Very cool. So thanks for taking the time out for this interview with our Elevation Nation there along with us. Really appreciate it, Eleanor. If somebody wishes to get in touch with you, what's the best way? Can you give me your web address and then also the best places to find you?
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So my
Mhm.
the best web address is eleanorbeaton.com.
Mhm.
So come on over there, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share that, eleanorbeaton.com. And the
Mhm.
best place to follow me really is on LinkedIn. It's
Awesome.
Eleanor Beaton. Yeah, you can come check me out on LinkedIn. I'm really active there. It's my favorite platform. And then, I'm on all the usual social sites
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Guys, make sure you check out her podcast as well. I've listened to a few of those episodes and they are great. And I'm sure you'll take a lot away from what her guests share as well as what Eleanor does on those shows. So once again, I want to say thank you for listening. And remember, Elevation Nation, it's through your support that we continue to grow and bring you more great guests just like Eleanor today, the Amazonian warrior princess. So please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and Stitcher, and we'll continue to elevate you. Now, normally what I do is have the final word, and I think today, really, I just want to pick up on the 3 points that you raised. And for me, that's kind of the summary of what I'm getting from you, Eleanor, which is communication and think persuasively. Do the inner work to make sure your desires are greater than your fears, and stay in action. Done is better than perfect. Eleanor, it has been a great pleasure. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.